Doubt is often misunderstood. People treat it as a warning sign, as if its presence means something is wrong or that they are not meant to continue. But doubt is not truth. It does not arrive with wisdom or clarity. It arrives as raw, untrained energy moving through the mind without direction. When this energy is not understood, it takes control. When it is understood, it becomes fuel. The mind produces thoughts constantly, just as the lungs produce breath. Not every breath is deep, and not every thought is useful. Doubt is simply a thought pattern that has not been examined, disciplined, or refined. It feels powerful because it is repetitive, not because it is correct. The mind repeats what it has practiced. If it has practiced fear, it produces doubt. If it has practiced discipline, it produces focus. Untrained energy seeks escape. Doubt looks for shortcuts, excuses, and delays. It asks questions not to find answers, but to avoid commitment. It says, "What if this fails?" Not to protect you, but to keep you from discomfort. The mind prefers familiarity over growth. Even pain feels safe when it is known. Doubt keeps you loyal to what you already are. When energy is untrained, it scatters. Attention jumps from one fear to another. Confidence rises and falls with circumstances. One small setback becomes proof of inadequacy. One opinion from another person becomes authority. This is not because the individual is weak, but because the inner structure has not been built. Without structure, energy leaks. Truth is stable. Doubt is unstable. Truth does not rush panic or beg for reassurance. Doubt is loud and impatient. It demands certainty before effort. But certainty is not found before action. It is created through action. This is why doubt feels so convincing to those who hesitate. The longer you wait, the louder it becomes. Training the mind does not mean eliminating doubt. It means changing your relationship with it. Instead of obeying every thought, you learn to observe it. You notice the sensation in the body, the tightening in the chest, the restlessness in the breath. You see that doubt is a physical response as much as a mental one. Energy seeking direction. When you stop labeling doubt as truth, it loses authority. It becomes information rather than instruction. You realize that doubt appears most strongly before growth, not before failure. Every expansion requires leaving the known. The mind resists this by creating imagined dangers. It would rather predict catastrophe than face uncertainty. Untrained energy magnifies imagination. Small risks become exaggerated threats. Temporary discomfort becomes permanent disaster. This is why discipline is essential. Discipline channels energy into action. Action grounds the mind in reality. Reality is always less dramatic than the stories doubt creates. Structure trains energy. Waking up at the same time, doing the work regardless of mood, keeping promises to yourself. These are not rigid habits. They are stabilizers. They teach the mind that movement will happen whether doubt appears or not. Over time, doubt weakens, not because it disappears, but because it is no longer rewarded with attention. Attention is power. Whatever you give attention to grows. When you listen to doubt, you strengthen it. When you move despite it, you weaken it. This is not suppression. It is redirection. Energy that once fed hesitation begins to fuel execution. Clarity comes from repetition. The first time you act, doubt screams. The 10th time, it whispers. The 100th time, it watches silently. Mastery is not confidence without fear. It is familiarity with fear. You have felt it before and survived. The mind learns this through experience, not reassurance. Untrained energy also seeks validation. Doubt asks others for permission. It wants approval before commitment. But external opinions cannot stabilize an unstable mind. If you rely on others to remove doubt, you become dependent on their presence. When they are gone, doubt returns stronger. Internal authority is built through self-respect. Self-respect grows when your actions align with your decisions. Each time you act in alignment, you strengthen inner trust. Doubt feeds on broken promises to the self. Discipline starves it. Silence is where untrained energy reveals itself. When distractions are removed, doubt surfaces clearly. This is why many avoid stillness. In silence, there is no escape from the mind's habits. But this is also where training begins. Observing without reacting, feeling without fleeing, staying present without seeking comfort. Energy that is trained becomes calm. Calm is not weakness. Calm is control. A calm mind does not rush decisions or panic under pressure. It moves deliberately. It conserves strength. Doubt cannot survive long in a calm mind because it depends on agitation. Winning is not about erasing doubt. It is about no longer identifying with it. When doubt appears, you recognize it as a signal to refine focus, strengthen discipline, and return to structure. You stop asking whether you feel ready and start asking whether you are willing to act. Untrained energy looks for guarantees. Trained energy creates momentum. Momentum dissolves doubt naturally. Movement clarifies intention. Stillness without awareness breeds hesitation. Action with awareness builds certainty. The moment you understand that doubt is not a message about your potential, but a reflection of your training, everything changes. You stop fighting yourself. You start training yourself. You stop waiting for confidence. You build it through repetition, structure, and disciplined movement forward. Many people misunderstand the path to success. They believe that motivation is the key, the sudden surge of energy that inspires them to start a project, pursue a goal, or change their life. Motivation feels good. It feels like a spark. It can be powerful in the moment, and yet it is fleeting. Motivation depends on conditions. It depends on mood, on circumstances, on external stimuli. It is unreliable because it is not under your control. Success cannot be built on something that comes and goes, that appears only when you feel like it. Discipline, on the other hand, is not a feeling. Discipline is a decision, a repeated action, and a system. Discipline is what you do when motivation has disappeared. Motivation is the fire that excites, but discipline is the foundation that holds the structure together when the fire has burned out. People often start with motivation. They feel inspired to change, to achieve, to grow. But without discipline, inspiration is temporary. It fades as soon as resistance appears, as soon as the first obstacle comes, as soon as life tests resolve. Discipline is invisible in the short term, but powerful over the long term. It is a habit of the mind and body that converts intention into reality. It shows up in small, consistent actions that are often unnoticed by others. Waking up early, writing every day, making deliberate choices instead of impulsive ones. Prioritizing what matters over what feels easy, these are acts of discipline. They are not glamorous, they are not dramatic. They are not accompanied by adrenaline or excitement, but they accumulate, quietly shaping outcomes. Success is often measured by visible results, wealth, recognition, influence. But visible results are only the surface of a deeper process. Underneath lies a consistent practice that is maintained even when motivation is absent. A motivated person starts when the mood strikes. A disciplined person starts every day, regardless of mood, regardless of energy, regardless of external validation. Discipline allows progress to continue even when motivation disappears, even when the world pushes back. Motivation is volatile. Discipline is unshakable. Consider the difference in mindset. Motivation says, I will do this when I feel like it. Discipline says, I will do this because it aligns with my goal, whether I feel like it or not. Motivation is conditional. Discipline is unconditional. Motivation reacts to external circumstances. Discipline responds to internal commitment. Motivation is influenced by events, by praise, by success. Discipline creates its own momentum independent of circumstances. Discipline does not wait for perfect conditions. Motivation always waits for the perfect moment. Success waits for discipline. Discipline also trains the mind to handle resistance. The path to success is never smooth. Motivation thrives when progress feels easy. When difficulties arise, motivation falters. Discipline does not rely on comfort. Discipline moves through discomfort, through obstacles, through fatigue, through fear. Discipline teaches consistency, focus, and resilience. It builds the internal muscle to persevere long after motivation has abandoned you. The accumulation of small, disciplined actions compounds over time. Success is rarely instant. Motivation gives you a burst. Discipline builds a structure. Imagine someone who writes for 5 minutes a day when motivated. They will only write when inspiration strikes, perhaps inconsistently. Imagine someone who writes every day for 5 minutes, even when unmotivated, the habit becomes unstoppable. Over months and years, the disciplined person will surpass the motivated one, not because they are inherently more talented, but because they show up day after day without negotiation. Discipline is also freedom. It may seem paradoxical, but structure liberates. When you have disciplined habits, decisions are easier. Energy is not wasted on indecision or procrastination. You know what to do and you do it. Motivation is uncertain. Motivation requires constant searching, convincing external stimuli. Discipline eliminates these distractions. Discipline transforms effort into routine, so energy is preserved for execution, not debate. Motivation can inspire, but it can also deceive. Many people overestimate their ability to rely on motivation. They wait for a feeling of inspiration, a surge of energy, or a favorable circumstance. They mistake occasional bursts of enthusiasm for a sustainable system. They start strong and quit when challenges arise. They blame themselves, blame life, or blame circumstances. The truth is not about blame, it is about training. Motivation is unreliable. Discipline is predictable. Motivation is temporary. Discipline is permanent. Discipline also builds character. It is not just about completing tasks, it is about strengthening the will. Every time you act without motivation, you reinforce your ability to control your mind. You prove to yourself that commitment matters more than feeling. You develop a mindset where action becomes inevitable and excuses lose their power. Motivation may push you forward once, but discipline propels you consistently. Motivation may excite you momentarily, but discipline shapes identity over a lifetime. Success is not a matter of luck or inspiration, it is a matter of choice and persistence. The person who relies on motivation will fluctuate with mood and circumstance. The disciplined person would continue even when fear, doubt, or fatigue appear. Discipline creates an internal environment where results are inevitable. It aligns action with purpose. It transforms potential into reality. Even when motivation disappears completely, discipline remains. This is the secret that many overlook. Motivation will always come and go. It is natural for excitement to fade, but discipline carries you forward. Motivation may create momentum for a moment, but discipline sustains it indefinitely. Motivation is external, discipline is internal. Motivation reacts to life, discipline shapes life. Motivation inspires, discipline accomplishes. Every success story, when stripped of glamour, reveals this truth. The individual succeeded not because they felt motivated every day, but because they disciplined themselves every day. They acted when they wanted to quit. They persisted when results were invisible. They followed routines that built skill, focus, and strength. They showed up consistently even when excitement was absent, because they knew that motivation is unreliable, but discipline is invincible. The most successful people are rarely the most motivated. They are the most disciplined. They have trained themselves to act independently of feelings. They understand that discipline is the engine and motivation is only the spark. Discipline is steady, predictable, and powerful. Motivation is temporary, unpredictable, and unreliable. Success is not a product of how inspired you feel in the moment. It is a product of how committed you are over time. Discipline transforms ordinary effort into extraordinary results. It allows consistency in chaos, focus in distraction, and perseverance in adversity. Motivation may give you the illusion of power, but only discipline delivers reality. Discipline is not just a tool, it is a way of being. It is a mindset that chooses long-term outcomes over short-term pleasure, action over hesitation, structure over chaos. Discipline is the silent force behind every achievement, the foundation upon which unshakable success is built, and the measure that separates fleeting effort from lasting triumph. Fear is one of the most persistent obstacles to success. It appears in many forms: hesitation, doubt, procrastination, avoidance, and even distraction. Fear is not always loud, sometimes it whispers quietly in the mind, eroding confidence slowly. Most people try to fight fear with willpower, motivation, or temporary courage. These approaches are temporary because they treat the symptom, not the source. The root of fear is always uncertainty, confusion, and lack of direction. Without clarity, the mind cannot distinguish between real danger and imagined limitation. Fear thrives in ambiguity. The moment purpose becomes clear, fear begins to dissolve. Purpose is a compass. It orients the mind, body, and energy toward a fixed point. When the mind knows where it is going, distractions lose power, obstacles become manageable, and hesitation fades. Fear cannot exist where direction is certain. It is the unknown that triggers anxiety. When every step is guided by a defined purpose, uncertainty diminishes and the mind becomes resolute. Clarity of purpose transforms vague desire into intentional action. Most people drift through life reacting to circumstance, waiting for inspiration, or seeking approval. In that drift, fear grows unchecked. The mind is left to imagine worst-case scenarios, magnifying risk and paralyzing action. Fear thrives in the absence of certainty because the unknown becomes a story in the mind, often a story far worse than reality. Purpose, by contrast, provides a structure for action. It creates a framework in which decisions are clear, priorities are defined, and hesitation loses authority. When purpose is unclear, the mind vacillates. Decisions feel heavy, choices become paralyzing, and energy dissipates into indecision. The mind searches for reasons not to move forward because it cannot see the path ahead. Fear thrives on this indecision, convincing the individual that waiting is safer than acting. But waiting is not safety, it is stagnation. Clarity of purpose cuts through this fog. When you know why you are moving, fear cannot dictate the pace. It may appear, but it becomes background noise, powerless to stop action. Clarity of purpose also aligns the mind and body. Fear is often a physical response, a racing heart, tight chest, shallow breath, or restless energy. When the mind is uncertain, the body senses danger, preparing to resist or escape. Purpose restores alignment. The body and mind act together toward a defined goal. Energy that once fueled anxiety now drives movement. Action becomes inevitable because the mind knows what to prioritize and the body knows what to execute. Fear loses its physiological grip when energy is directed towards certainty. Purpose provides a lens for evaluation. When fear arises, the mind instinctively asks, what is the risk? Without purpose, the answer is ambiguous. The mind imagines consequences, magnifies doubt, and delays action. With purpose, the question becomes, does this move me closer to my goal? The risk is measured against clarity, and fear loses the ability to distort reality. Decisions are no longer emotional reactions, they become logical extensions of intent. Purpose transforms fear from a controlling force into a signal, a guidepost to refine strategy and execution. Purpose also creates resilience. Obstacles are inevitable. Challenges, criticism, failure, and setbacks are unavoidable on any path worth pursuing. Fear often intensifies in response to these external pressures, convincing the mind to retreat. Purpose, however, reframes adversity. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to act in alignment with intent. The mind stops seeing difficulties as threats and starts seeing them as tests. This perspective weakens fear because the individual measures experience against purpose, not against imagined worst-case scenarios. Clarity of purpose simplifies life. Complexity and distraction amplify fear. When attention is scattered across multiple directions, the mind becomes overstimulated and anxious. When the path is clear, every choice, every action, every decision aligns with a central focus. The mind does not waste energy weighing unnecessary alternatives. Distraction loses power, and fear loses the space it needs to grow. Purpose is the filter through which all options are evaluated. Everything that does not serve the goal is either eliminated or ignored. In this simplicity, fear cannot thrive. Fear also thrives on procrastination. Delay allows the mind to exaggerate risk and rehearse failure. Purpose eliminates procrastination because it creates urgency. When the mind is anchored in clarity, action is not optional, it is inevitable. Fear may appear as hesitation, but the disciplined pursuit of purpose keeps momentum moving forward. Momentum itself reduces fear because action generates confidence. The more consistent the movement, the less power fear holds. Clarity is not passive. It creates active energy that overrides hesitation. Clarity of purpose strengthens identity. Fear often attacks the self by questioning capability, worthiness, and potential. The mind says, you cannot succeed, you are not ready, or you will fail. When purpose is defined, identity is anchored in intention rather than fear. You are not defined by what might happen, you are defined by what you are committed to achieve. The mind begins to measure experience against alignment with purpose rather than against imagined limitation. Fear begins to feel irrelevant because it no longer challenges who you are. It only tests a commitment to what you know you must do. Purpose transforms fear from an enemy into a tool. When the mind is clear, fear becomes information rather than instruction. It signals areas that require preparation, attention, or caution without controlling action. Fear may still appear as discomfort, anxiety, or uncertainty, but clarity ensures that it does not dictate the next step. Fear becomes a companion to purpose, providing heightened awareness while action continues. The individual no longer waits for courage to appear. Courage emerges naturally from alignment with purpose. Every act taken with clarity reinforces confidence. Confidence is not built in the absence of fear, it is built in the consistent application of effort toward a defined goal despite fear. When you know your destination, fear becomes irrelevant. Obstacles are navigable, setbacks are temporary, and hesitation is replaced with momentum. Purpose converts uncertainty into strategy, and strategy neutralizes fear. The mind, once restless and reactive, becomes focused and proactive. Energy that previously fed anxiety now drives consistent action, and fear gradually diminishes as clarity strengthens. Fear may return in new forms, but clarity provides a constant anchor. It ensures that decisions are deliberate, action is inevitable, and progress is measurable. The mind no longer reacts impulsively to imagined threats because purpose creates a framework for evaluation and execution. Momentum grows, resilience strengthens, and fear gradually dissolves as energy is redirected toward meaningful achievement. Purpose is not temporary motivation. It is the internal compass that guides every step, every choice, and every action, allowing the individual to move forward without hesitation, doubt, or delay. Life is chaotic. The mind is easily pulled in multiple directions, responding to external demands, internal impulses, and unforeseen circumstances. Most people experience this as restlessness, anxiety, or constant distraction. The energy feels scattered, and decisions feel heavier than they should. Inner stability, calmness, focus, and resilience is rarely accidental. It is cultivated through deliberate structure in daily life. Daily structure is the framework that channels energy, organizes thought, and stabilizes the mind. Without it, the mind drifts and the body reacts to circumstance rather than directing it. Stability begins with design, and design begins with the daily routine. Structure is not restriction. It is a form of freedom. When the day is structured, priorities are clear. The mind does not need to weigh every choice, debate every action, or negotiate every decision. Decisions that previously consumed mental energy are predetermined, leaving the mind free to focus on higher order challenges. The stability that comes from structure is not passive. It is active, intentional, and self-reinforcing. Every habit, every routine, every repeated action becomes a building block of resilience. Structure teaches the mind to anticipate, plan, and respond rather than react. The absence of structure creates chaos. Small choices multiply and compound until the day feels uncontrollable. The mind becomes restless, attention fragments, and energy leaks into trivial matters. Anxiety arises not because of the magnitude of challenges, but because the individual lacks an internal framework for navigating them. Structure solves this problem by establishing predictable patterns. When the body and mind know what to expect, uncertainty diminishes. Predictability in daily actions creates an anchor, a center of gravity within the mind, and an environment in which fear, hesitation, and distraction lose power. Structure also trains consistency. Stability does not come from sporadic effort, it comes from repeated action over time. Waking at the same hour, committing to work blocks, exercising, meditating, planning, and reviewing priorities are not arbitrary acts, they are signals to the mind and body that certain actions are non-negotiable. Repetition produces trust. The mind trusts itself because it experiences reliability in its own behavior. The body trusts the mind because it knows movement, energy, and effort are guided rather than chaotic. Over time, this creates a sense of inner security, a confidence that is independent of external circumstances. Daily structure simplifies complexity. Life presents countless choices, many of which are trivial but mentally draining. Structure reduces unnecessary deliberation. Meals, exercise, work, rest, and reflection, when placed into deliberate patterns, reduce cognitive load. Energy is conserved. The mind can then focus on creative, strategic, or high-impact decisions rather than wasting attention on minor details. Stability emerges when energy is directed efficiently rather than dissipated across scattered priorities. Inner stability also comes from alignment. Structure is most effective when it reflects core purpose and values. A structured day that conflicts with one's true priorities creates tension rather than calm. Conversely, when routines and rituals align with goals and principles, the mind experiences harmony. Stress diminishes because the internal environment mirrors intention. The individual is not pulled between competing demands, they are directed by a deliberate plan. Stability is no longer external, it is internal, arising from alignment between thought, action, and intention. Structure strengthens resilience. Life will always present surprises, interruptions, and crises. A structured mind and body respond more effectively because stability has been trained through repeated practice. When the day is predictable, the mind can absorb unexpected shocks without losing equilibrium. Habits become anchors, routines become stabilizers, and consistency produces confidence. Disruption is met with adaptation rather than panic because the internal framework supports recovery and recalibration. Structure also cultivates self-discipline. Motivation is unreliable, energy fluctuates. Daily structure bypasses the need for constant motivation. When routines are established, action occurs automatically. The mind is conditioned to act with intention regardless of mood, energy, or external circumstances. This consistency reinforces inner stability because the individual is no longer at the mercy of fleeting feelings. Stability grows from predictable action, not temporary inspiration. Structure supports focus. Multitasking and distraction fragment attention, producing stress and indecision. Structure provides boundaries. Work sessions, breaks, reflection periods, and movement are deliberately organized. The mind learns when to engage fully and when to rest. Focus is no longer scattered but concentrated. Energy is harnessed rather than depleted. Stability is the natural byproduct of concentrated, deliberate effort applied consistently over time. Daily structure also regulates emotion. Emotional turbulence often arises from unpredictability. When the mind anticipates what comes next, emotional responses become manageable. The body responds predictably, the mind feels in control, and stress is reduced. Predictable routines allow reflection, meditation, and self-assessment, tools that further enhance emotional regulation. Inner stability is not just about calm thought. It is about controlled emotion, measured response, and the capacity to remain composed under pressure. Structure cultivates momentum. Small, repeated actions create progress. Each completed task reinforces confidence and capacity. Momentum produces energy, energy produces clarity, and clarity produces further progress. The mind experiences a cycle of reinforcement that strengthens self-trust. Stability grows not in isolation, but in the context of forward motion. Structure creates the conditions for momentum, and momentum consolidates inner strength. Structure also builds identity. Who you are is reflected in what you consistently do. Daily routines are declarations of intention, values, and purpose. The mind internalizes these patterns as identity. Over time, the repeated practice of deliberate action reinforces a stable sense of self. The individual no longer wavers because inner habits define response and action. Structure cultivates an unshakable core, a mental and emotional anchor that persists regardless of circumstance. Finally, structure cultivates clarity. When life is organized around deliberate routines, the mind has space to see patterns, assess priorities, and make informed choices. Chaos clouds perception. Repetition, order, and alignment reveal what matters, expose unnecessary distractions, and illuminate the path forward. Stability and clarity feed each other. Clarity reinforces structure, and structure produces clarity. The mind becomes resilient, decisive, and unwavering. Daily structure is not about rigidity, it is about intentionality. It is not about eliminating flexibility, but about creating a foundation from which flexibility can operate without chaos. Predictability in certain aspects of life frees energy for creativity, action, and growth. It teaches the mind to anticipate, adapt, and focus. It converts scattered energy into purposeful movement, anxiety into calm, and indecision into certainty. Stability emerges naturally when energy is trained, attention is disciplined, and action is consistent. The mind and body respond to repetition, predictability, and deliberate rhythm. Inner stability is cultivated not through external validation or random inspiration, but through the repeated practice of aligned action. Small daily acts of structure, rising with purpose, dedicating time to work, resting, reflecting, and aligning with values accumulate into a profound sense of equilibrium. Over time, the mind no longer oscillates with circumstance. Energy is directed rather than wasted. Focus is sustained. Emotions are managed. Action is deliberate. Resilience is cultivated. Momentum builds, identity solidifies, and clarity emerges. Daily structure creates a framework in which fear, doubt, and distraction have no place to grow. It provides the mental scaffolding to navigate challenges without losing composure. It strengthens decision-making, amplifies energy, and reinforces consistency. Habits become anchors, routines become stabilizers, and repetition becomes a teacher. Stability is no longer an aspiration but a lived experience. The individual learns that order in the day produces order in the mind, consistency in behavior produces confidence, and deliberate design produces resilience. Decision-making is one of the most powerful skills a person can develop, yet it is rarely taught, rarely understood, and often sabotaged by noise, external, internal, and emotional. Most people live in a state of constant distraction, reacting to what others say, chasing fleeting impulses, and allowing emotion to dominate logic. This reactive state is fertile ground for poor choices, regret, and wasted energy. True clarity in decision-making does not come from busyness or chatter. It comes from silence and self-mastery. Silence is the environment in which the mind becomes sharp, and self-mastery is the discipline that allows action to align perfectly with intention. Together, they transform indecision into precision. Silence is more than the absence of sound. It is a deliberate space created within the mind, a moment of pause in which observation takes priority over reaction. In silence, thoughts can be seen clearly, uncolored by urgency or outside influence. Most decisions are clouded because the mind has been overstimulated by noise, opinions, media, pressure, and distraction. In these conditions, choices are reactive, emotional, or influenced by others. When silence is cultivated, the mind steps back from these inputs, creating room for reflection, assessment, and discernment. Silence allows the internal landscape to settle, revealing what is essential and what is peripheral. Self-mastery is the companion of silence. Without self-mastery, silence alone is insufficient. It is possible to be silent, but internally reactive, ruminating, worrying, or overthinking. Self-mastery is the ability to regulate thoughts, emotions, and impulses. It is the strength to observe without reacting, to remain grounded when fear arises, and to act according to principle rather than impulse. When self-mastery is present, silence becomes purposeful. The mind no longer chases every thought, and the individual can discern the difference between instinct, desire, fear, and truth. Decisions are no longer accidental, they are deliberate. The combination of silence and self-mastery sharpens focus. Focus is the clarity of attention directed at what truly matters. When external distractions are removed and internal impulses are regulated, the mind can assess options with precision. It sees cause and effect more clearly, anticipates consequences more accurately, and recognizes subtle opportunities that the noisy mind would miss. Distractions create mental fog, leading to hesitation, confusion, or impulsive choices. Silence clears the fog, and self-mastery directs the gaze. The individual learns to see the path ahead, not the imagined obstacles created by reaction or fear. Silence also strengthens perception. The mind often confuses movement with progress. People believe that constant activity or rapid response is evidence of clarity, but it is usually evidence of untrained reaction. Decision-making requires observation, not noise. In silence, patterns emerge. The mind sees the context surrounding a choice, the timing, the players, the risks, and the potential rewards. This insight cannot occur in a state of constant chatter or distraction. Only in quiet observation does the mind understand the variables fully. Self-mastery transforms observation into action. Observation without discipline leads to paralysis. Many people can see clearly but are unable to act decisively because they are enslaved by impulse, fear, or desire. Self-mastery is the control over these tendencies. It ensures that choices are aligned with purpose rather than dictated by temporary emotion. Fear, anger, and desire no longer hijack decision-making. The mind becomes an instrument tuned to precision. Choices are made deliberately, with calm, calculated authority. Silence allows time for the mind to process consequences. Every decision carries weight, every action has a ripple effect. In a noisy state, these ripples are ignored, underestimated, or misunderstood. Decisions are taken with incomplete information or exaggerated assumptions. Silence creates space to consider outcomes realistically. Self-mastery ensures that reflection does not become hesitation. The mind learns to balance contemplation with execution, understanding both the immediate and long-term effects of choices. Consistency in silence and self-mastery strengthens confidence. Poor decision-making often arises from doubt, the fear of making the wrong choice. Doubt is strongest when the mind has been overwhelmed by noise or left untrained. Silence reduces mental clutter, and self-mastery reinforces control. When decisions are made deliberately and consistently, the mind develops a track record of reliable judgment. Confidence is no longer built on luck or temporary emotion. It is built on repeated, disciplined success in choosing wisely. Silence also cultivates discernment. In the absence of distraction, the mind can identify what is essential and what is irrelevant. Many poor decisions occur because individuals treat all inputs as equally important. The opinions of others, fleeting emotions, and irrelevant circumstances often overshadow what truly matters. Silence allows the mind to filter inputs effectively. Self-mastery ensures that the filtered information is acted upon in alignment with purpose. The result is precision rather than scatter, impact rather than waste. Patience emerges naturally through silence and self-mastery. Most people rush decisions, believing speed equals efficiency. Rushed choices are reactive, incomplete, and error-prone. In silence, the mind slows, observes, and assesses. In self-mastery, the individual resists the impulse to act prematurely. Patience is not hesitation, It is the deliberate pacing of thought and action. Decisions made in this state are deliberate, intentional, and effective. Silence also strengthens intuition. The mind cannot hear its subtle signals amid noise. The body cannot communicate insights amid distraction. Intuition is the ability to sense patterns, opportunities, and risks that are not immediately obvious. When the mind is quiet and disciplined, these subtle signals become clear. Decision-making is no longer blind but informed by both observation and instinct. Self-mastery ensures that intuition is trusted without being distorted by fear or desire. Repeated practice of silence and self-mastery creates a resilient decision-making framework. The individual learns to act decisively even under pressure, to remain composed amid uncertainty, and to discern truth amid misinformation. Decisions are not impulsive reactions but calibrated actions aligned with principle, purpose, and reality. The mind is sharp, focused, and flexible, capable of adapting to change without losing authority. Silence and self-mastery also enhance emotional regulation. Decisions are rarely made in a vacuum. They are influenced by stress, anger, excitement, and anxiety. Silence creates space for these emotions to settle. Self-mastery ensures they do not dictate action. The mind learns to recognize emotional states as information rather than instruction. Decisions are therefore guided by clarity, not chaos. The individual no longer reacts to every surge of feeling but acts with deliberate intention. In this state, decision-making becomes a reflection of inner strength. Noise no longer distorts perception. Impulse no longer overrides judgment. Fear no longer dictates choices. Confidence, clarity, and purpose guide action. The individual becomes capable of making difficult decisions swiftly, calmly, and accurately because the mind has been trained to observe, assess, and act with precision. Energy is no longer wasted on indecision or distraction. Action becomes deliberate, momentum builds, insight sharpens. Each decision reinforces self-trust and strengthens the capacity for future judgment. Silence and self-mastery also create resilience under pressure. Life presents complexity, uncertainty, and high-stakes situations constantly. Without internal stability, the mind is overwhelmed and poor choices are inevitable. Silence provides mental clarity. Self-mastery ensures emotional control. Together, they allow the individual to respond effectively even when circumstances are chaotic, high pressure, or uncertain. The mind remains grounded, sharp, and decisive. Actions are aligned with purpose, energy is focused, and results are consistent. The development of silence and self-mastery is not instantaneous. It requires deliberate practice, repeated restraint, and conscious observation. It demands the ability to pause in noise, to resist impulse, and to cultivate presence. Over time, however, these skills compound. The mind becomes precise, the body responsive, and decision-making becomes effortless. The individual no longer reacts to every external stimulus or internal impulse. Instead, every choice is measured, aligned, and intentional. Clarity replaces confusion. Confidence replaces hesitation. Momentum replaces stagnation. Many people misunderstand what true success is. They believe that achieving a single breakthrough, reaching a milestone, or experiencing a moment of glory defines victory. But these moments are fleeting. They are temporary spikes of accomplishment that can disappear as quickly as they appear. True victory is not found in the excitement of success when circumstances are favorable. True victory is found in consistency under pressure, the ability to maintain focus, discipline, and action when the environment is challenging, the stakes are high, and the mind and body resist. This is the mark of real strength, and it is the foundation upon which lasting achievement is built. Pressure is inevitable. Life presents unexpected challenges, setbacks, criticism, and obstacles at every stage. Every individual who seeks meaningful results will encounter circumstances that test resolve. Pressure can manifest as external demands, high expectations, financial strain, physical fatigue, or emotional turmoil. It can also appear as internal conflict, self-doubt, fear of failure, frustration, and mental exhaustion. Under these conditions, most people falter. They act inconsistently, delay action, make excuses, or abandon their path entirely. They confuse immediate comfort with long-term victory, forgetting that resilience is earned in moments of adversity. Consistency under pressure requires discipline. Discipline is the ability to act according to principle, purpose, and plan. Even when motivation is absent, motivation fluctuates with energy, mood, and circumstances. It cannot be relied upon during moments of stress or challenge. Discipline, however, is trained. It is strengthened through repetition and deliberate action. The individual who acts consistently under pressure has cultivated the habit of doing what must be done, regardless of discomfort, distraction, or fear. This habit becomes a protective shield, allowing performance to remain steady even when the situation is unstable. Pressure magnifies weakness. It exposes gaps in skill, focus, and character. It challenges the mind's ability to remain calm, the body's ability to perform, and the spirit's capacity to endure. Consistency under pressure is the test of whether preparation, training, and self-mastery have been internalized. It separates those who rely on fleeting inspiration from those who have built true resilience. Temporary victories achieved under ideal conditions are insignificant compared to the quiet, deliberate victories earned when circumstances are unforgiving. Consistency under pressure also requires mental clarity. When stakes are high, distractions increase, emotions intensify, and the mind can become chaotic. Clarity allows the individual to distinguish between what is important and what is irrelevant. It allows prioritization of action over reaction and focus over diffusion. Mental clarity under pressure is not innate. It is cultivated through practice, reflection, and experience. It is strengthened by routines, habits, and discipline that ensure the mind is not easily overwhelmed by external turbulence. The individual who maintains clarity can act decisively, even when chaos surrounds them. Pressure also magnifies emotional response. Fear, frustration, anger, and anxiety can become overwhelming. Most people react impulsively, making decisions driven by emotion rather than reason. Consistency under pressure requires emotional regulation. The individual must recognize feelings without surrendering to them. Emotion becomes information, not instruction. Through self-mastery, the mind learns to observe emotional surges without allowing them to dictate behavior. This is where mental toughness is forged. It is the ability to maintain a steady course, to perform under discomfort, and to act in alignment with long-term goals rather than immediate impulses. Consistency under pressure builds trust, trust in oneself, trust in one's process, and trust in one's ability to navigate adversity. Every time action is taken despite difficulty, confidence grows. Every time focus is maintained while others falter, resilience strengthens. The mind begins to anticipate challenges rather than fear them. Energy is no longer wasted on resistance or distraction. It is concentrated on deliberate action. This internal trust is the foundation for continued performance. It allows the individual to navigate uncertainty with composure, to endure prolonged stress without collapse, and to act with authority even when outcomes are unknown. Physical endurance is also critical in maintaining consistency under pressure. The body often mirrors the state of the mind. Fatigue, discomfort, and stress can compromise performance, leading to errors, procrastination, or abandonment of goals. Consistency requires that the body be trained to withstand strain, recover efficiently, and maintain energy reserves. Physical discipline through exercise, rest, nutrition, and routine supports mental and emotional resilience. It ensures that performance does not crumble when pressure rises. The individual who cultivates both mental and physical endurance can operate steadily, even under prolonged stress. Consistency under pressure demands patience. Results rarely appear immediately. High-stakes situations often unfold slowly, with multiple obstacles along the way. Impatience under pressure leads to reactive decisions, shortcuts, or abandoning the path entirely. Patience, coupled with consistency, allows the individual to persist through difficulty, maintain focus, and take deliberate steps toward long-term goals. Every small, repeated action compounds over time, creating momentum that cannot be easily reversed by temporary adversity. Accountability is strengthened through consistency. The individual who performs reliably under pressure earns trust from others and reinforces self-confidence. Reliability under stress is rare, and it distinguishes those who achieve enduring success from those who succeed only when conditions are favorable. Accountability under pressure also means taking ownership of decisions and outcomes. Mistakes are acknowledged without panic, and corrective action is taken without delay. The mind and body remain aligned with purpose rather than swayed by circumstance. Consistency under pressure sharpens decision-making. When stakes are high, rapid choices are required. The individual who has trained through repeated pressure can assess options quickly, prioritize effectively, and act decisively. Hesitation and second-guessing are reduced because the mind has practiced action in uncertainty. Clarity emerges from repetition, and confidence is reinforced through experience. Decisions become less reactive and more strategic. The individual can maintain alignment with long-term goals despite immediate discomfort or risk. Pressure also tests values. Maintaining consistency is not merely about action, but about alignment with principles and purpose. When shortcuts are tempting, when convenience tempts compromise, consistency under pressure ensures integrity remains intact. Victory is not measured by results alone, but by adherence to principle during challenging circumstances. This creates a sense of mastery and self-respect that cannot be shaken, regardless of external outcomes. Ultimately, consistency under pressure transforms potential into reality. Talent, ideas, and intention are meaningless without sustained effort in adversity. Motivation is fleeting and circumstances are unpredictable, but disciplined action under stress is reliable. Every small, deliberate act compounds, reinforcing skill, resilience, and confidence. Momentum grows, and obstacles that once seemed insurmountable become manageable. The individual learns that real strength is not displayed in easy victories, but in the ability to persist, adapt, and perform when conditions are difficult, expectations are high, and energy is taxed. Those who achieve true success understand this principle. They do not rely on favorable conditions, external validation, or temporary enthusiasm. They cultivate routines, habits, and mental frameworks that allow them to perform consistently, regardless of circumstance. Pressure becomes a testing ground rather than a threat. Adversity becomes an opportunity to reinforce focus, refine skill, and strengthen resolve. The victories that matter most, those that endure, are not the ones achieved when life is smooth, but those earned when pressure is relentless, challenges are constant, and persistence is non-negotiable. Consistency under pressure is learned, practiced, and reinforced over time. It requires deliberate effort, mental clarity, emotional regulation, physical discipline, and alignment with purpose. It transforms fear into action, doubt into confidence, and resistance into momentum. It creates internal authority that does not waver with circumstance and allows the individual to navigate uncertainty with precision, resilience, and composure. Every repeated act of focused effort under stress strengthens capacity, owns judgment, and compounds results, producing a foundation for long-term achievement that cannot be dismantled by temporary setbacks.